Hi, and welcome to the show. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/podcast. Today, we welcome Christine Gall. She's a nurse executive. Today's Kevin MD article is Embracing Data-Driven Solutions to Prevent Falls. Christine, welcome to the show.
Kevin, thanks so much for having me.
So let's start by briefly sharing your story and journey.
Well, I started out as a pediatric nurse here in Southeast Wisconsin at Children's Wisconsin. And, very quickly I recognized that I wanted to do other things. My career is really based on the premise of curiosity. I've always wanted to learn more, know more, and try and impact the challenges of the day. So I've done everything from clinically, started out in pediatric cardiac care and step down care, have had the great opportunity to have leadership positions, develop programs from concept to implementation. Have really enjoyed that whole inquiry. Pivoted into patient experience, as well as spending about 10 years doing benchmarking for a national database for pediatric critical care. So throughout my journeys, I've always wanted to explore deeper where we could impact and influence the delivery of care differently to improve outcomes for patients.
Perfect. In today's episode, we're going to talk specifically about falls, your Kevin MD articles, embracing data-driven solutions to prevent falls. Now, what led you to write this article in the first place, and then talk about the article itself for those who didn't get a chance to read it?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, we had a landmark article or a book come out called To Err is Human, and almost 25 years ago now,
Yeah.
and we still haven't solved patient safety. When you look at fall rates, across the United States, and recognizing that although I started out in pediatrics, I am now laser focused on what's happening to our citizens at the end of life. I have a front row seat to my own parents as they age. And what I have seen in the data and literature support this is that falls actually, more often than not, are the final situation that occur that lead to that inevitable final decline in life. And I think it's something that we have to pay attention to. And there's so many issues that we have to deal with in healthcare that are actually challenging our ability to continue to focus on falls as a leading issue for us. So I think it's an area that we need to continue to keep at the top of our conversations professionally and collaborate in new and innovative ways for how we can impact this really important issue.
And for those who may not be familiar with the severity of falls and, like you said, how that could potentially lead into a final decline in a healthcare setting, what are some of the major reasons? What are some of the key factors that lead to falls in the first place?
Yeah, great question. We when we look at the environment of a hospital, it is a very foreign environment for people in general. It's an intimidating environment, and when you are in a position of being ill and being dependent upon the system and the people around you, it's a really challenging place to be. Add on top of that things that include injury or illness that might have impacted your strength or your ability to troubleshoot, problem solve, or just cognition in general. Add on top of that the medications that might be used to treat you that might impact your ability to be independent. And then add on top of that, if you are in the later stages of life and you might have the early onset or impact of your cognition through dementia or other impacts, you are going to be at a very great risk while in the hospital environment seeking care to improve your actual outcomes. And that by design is putting you in a challenging position. On top of that, you have the challenge of our workforce, and this is not exclusive to healthcare, but healthcare is really challenged by the fact that we have people that are leaving at greater numbers than ever seen or ever anticipated lately, and we don't have enough newer people entering the profession to be able to impact the void that has been created. So when you're dealing with issues related to patient safety and the programs that are developed that need or that are developed to address patient safety issues like falls, it requires humans on the other end of the equation. And when you are stressed and taxed and your nurse to patient ratio, as an example, are increasing, your ability to do all of those things in addition to all of the orders and the tasks and the assessments that you need to ensure that that patient continues to heal, that all becomes a challenge.
Now, what are some of the traditional measures that healthcare institutions use to prevent falls? And why do you think, despite these measures, the challenge of falls continues to persist today?
Yeah. Well, clearly, throughout my career, we have tried many things. And as I mentioned, I started out in pediatrics, so I had to catch up when I
Sure.
entered the field of adult patient care and very quickly recognized the challenges. So there are everything from monitors to bed alarms to sitters that sit one-on-one with patients at the bedside. There are reminders, visual reminders that ask people to use their call light instead of attempting to do something independently. All of the above. And the challenge is that still we don't have the right mixture of solutions that are addressing that patient where they are and, what their experience of care is. When I think about when I made the transition from pediatric to adult care, and people would ask me, how on earth did you take care of children who are fragile and sick and die? And, and I look at what was very challenging for me when I would start walking the halls of facilities that took care of adults is I would look around and see the humanness in every bed and the fact that every person that I looked to were losing some of their independence and their milestones and even their basic human dignities at some times. And I think, we need to really think about how we deliver care. Is a alarm that sounds every time a patient moves in their bed the right and best solution? Or are there other alternatives? And really, that's what attracted me to Colette Health. When you can actually have a person who is dedicated to interacting and connecting with a patient to keep them safe, to make sure that they are continually supported and listened to, and even sometimes redirected when some of their activities might be leading down a path that might cause them an injury
Mhm.
or a fall. Those are the things that I think are really important to maintaining a safe environment while protecting the dignity of our patients. So I think that human factor of virtual care is so very important. And I think it's something that is really gaining a lot of attention. So the conversations like this that we're having are so very important.
So let's talk, of course, more specifically about that. Your Kevin MD article talks about some of these technological and data-driven solutions, and of course, you alluded to virtual aspect of that. So go into more detail about some of the potential solutions you have to prevent falls.
We started out in our journey of virtual care very much like our customer colleagues enter virtual care through direct patient observation. And that is, you have an observer who's not physically located in the same place as the patient, being able to observe not just one patient as our one-on-one sitter option does, but engage with multiple patients simultaneously. Some of the features that enable them to do that well is that there are AI technologies built into the platform that include things like motion detection. So if you are watching a panel of, let's say, 10 or 12 patients as an observer, you can actually, if you think about them as Brady Bunch tiles or much like a Zoom video where you have lots of screens with different people in the different tiles, you can move them around so that the most active patients are directly within your line of sight. But those patients that are sleeping that you might move to more of the periphery of your screen, they need attention too. And in fact, when patients awaken, that's actually one of the most at-risk periods of time. So we have technology as an example that recognizes that somebody's beginning to awaken, and it alerts the observer by highlighting that tile and say, hey, you'll want to pay attention here. So when that observer has been armed with information through shift report from that bedside nurse who's physically there that says, you know what, this patient wakes up usually confused, they can very quickly engage with that patient when they awakes. Mr. Jones, how was your sleep? Did you have a good nap? I want to remind you, do you remember you're in the hospital? And how are you doing right now? Do you need anything? I'd love to be able to connect with your nurse or your nursing assistant if you need anything. That is a really subtle, but again, a respectful way of supporting that patient, reorienting them to their environment, ensuring them and giving them the peace of mind that there's somebody there for them. And I think that that's one aspect of care. But going beyond observation, we recognize that there are other aspects of care. One of the challenges healthcare is dealing with is as our senior nurses leave, those with that great tenure and expertise, they're also taking their knowledge with them. And because, the challenges of bedside care have become incredibly rigorous, particularly in the last, 3 or 4 years. So what can we do to leverage that expertise by offering nurses who say, I just can't manage the rigor of bedside care anymore. Let's give them a different career path. So I'm having dozens of conversations across the country about how do we provide a different career path, give those expert nurses who have so much more to give an opportunity to, number one, mentor their nurses who are following their footsteps, give them expert guidance, or even offload some of the challenging aspects of care. When you look at care, there's the admission process and there's the discharge process. Those are two very highly, they require lots of effort, energy, and expertise to do those aspects of care. Let somebody who's a team member of that bedside nurse help them with those, the education that's needed, some of the collaboration or the coordination of care that's required. Let somebody that is a virtual support to that bedside nurse do that. So virtual nursing is in another area of care that definitely, we are positioned to support, but it's not just the technology that can do everything. You have to have the programs and the leadership support rolled around the technology and to leverage it at its best. So the programmatic aspects of implementing virtual nursing and virtual observation are just as important as the technology.
So, with your virtual observation platform, of course, there's going to be AI algorithms, but also someone monitoring up to, you said, 10 patients at a time. What are some of the things that they would specifically observe? And you mentioned just a patient getting up puts them at risk for falls, but what are some other things that they can observe that would perhaps warn the bedside nurse that this patient is a particularly high fall risk? What are some of the things that your virtual platform is specifically looking for?
Yeah, so definitely the observer is cued in, starting with the information they get from the bedside nurse, that shift report on what their areas of particular challenge are. So it may start with agitation. It may start with knowing that that patient got a diuretic, 30 minutes ago. So guess what? They're probably going to need to go to the bathroom sometime soon. And being able to check in with that, again, that human contact, being able to check in with somebody so that they don't make that urgent dash to the bathroom because they do not want the the undignified impact of incontinence. And, that's something I think we can all relate to. So we look at that. There's also technology aspects, including things like third-party join, which means that in addition to the observer, another party can come into that room virtually. So maybe the issue for that patient is they are, beyond consolable, and the only person that they need is their spouse right now. You can bring their spouse into the room. You can bring, whoever their representative is, the person that helps them navigate care if they're confused about the choices that they have. The things that make somebody either need to get up because they want to be independent, and that has so many different triggers, or I've had enough, I'm out of here, and elopement becomes an issue, and obviously that can lead to a fall. So understanding a patient, developing those human connections beyond what the bedside nurse through their, episodic interactions in the room are able to do because of the other demands they have. Having a virtual companion in that room who is cued into the specific needs of a patient, can emotionally support them, recognize when something's accelerating, and bring the right resources into the room, whether it's somebody directly at the hospital or virtually somebody who can help address their questions, their concerns, or just give them support in the form of a family member. So very important.
Now, is there any data that shows a virtual monitoring platform like this has led to a decrease in patient falls?
I'm very proud to say that throughout our customer base in the last 12 months, we have prevented just under 100,000 falls. And our good catches in other areas that we have prevented injury or improved the care team's ability to take care of issues specific to a patient are innumerable. So, it works. We know that the technology works, but again, it's not just a platform. It's not about the technology. It's about savvy leadership and savvy implementation of that platform, the technology, and making sure that the staff on the unit are trusting and willing to lean in to adopt the technology, because without that part of the equation, we all know those closets or those drawers on every unit with the latest, best idea that got shelved or got put in the closet because nobody wanted to deal with it. And that's truly, I think, the difference that Colette Health brings to the table. We want to be the implementation partner, not just sell you something and walk away. Because in order to deal with patient falls, which is one of our key priorities, top priorities, we need to make sure that the systems in place and the leadership in place around that technology are agile and efficient and effective.
We're talking to Christine Gall. She's a nurse executive. Today's Kevin MD article is Embracing Data-Driven Solutions to Prevent Falls. Christine, will end with some of your take-home messages that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience.
Oh, well, thanks, Kevin, again, for allowing me here. I think we are in a period of time in healthcare I've never seen before. This is our opportunity. We have the acceleration and interest to bring virtual technology into patient care. We need to do that in a thoughtful manner. We also need to prepare our leaders to be able to lead in this new frontier of virtual care, and how and when you actually incorporate virtual aspects of care into the delivery of human-centered patient care to improve outcomes, safety, and, the experience of care for both clinicians and patients. And, we are also needing to look at, this isn't a cookie cutter solution. We need to look at what the major problems, what the major challenges of your particular population are, and address them through custom purpose-built programs that best leverage the technology available. So I'd like to leave you with when you choose your partners, we're all looking at, who do we want to partner with to address these problems and bring virtual care in? Make sure that who you choose, it not only has the technology part of the equation, but also has the leadership and the programmatic chops to be able to help you execute a program and bring the staff to a place where they are ready, willing, and able to adopt that new change in their workflow to improve the outcomes that are obviously desired from virtual care.
Christine, thank you so much for sharing your perspective and insight. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Kevin, thanks so much.